So if you've been with Wifton for a while, you've probably heard from Nels before. He works with Mark and myself here at UW-Madison, and he's going to be telling us about priority invasive species lists in Wisconsin. So for those of you who are users of the Glidden app or who want to become users of the Glidden app, this is for you.
Thank you, Anne. That was a perfect introduction. I'm actually going to play off of some of the things that Alicia started off with, talking about her dissertation. So a couple of objectives for the day. I want to discuss the development of priority species list, and we're specifically talking about plants here, and that's based on the process of habitat suitability modeling that Alicia actually presented on as well. And then I want to provide an overview of an online resource. Maybe some of you had seen it last year, called an Esri Story Map, that was designed to encourage reporting of invasive plants across the state. And then offer some suggestions about how you can be involved with our project. So I don't think I have to tell most of you, but invasive species surveys can be difficult. But like Art alluded to earlier, finding invasive species early on in their invasion is really our best chance to control or eradicate some of those species or new populations. In the state, we have over 130 regulated invasive plants, and I see this as being a pretty overwhelming task. Searching all the time for all of these invasive plants all over the state is certainly overwhelming. So how do you know which to look for and potentially even where? So we can use existing known locations of those invasive species to predict where they are most likely to have suitable habitats or where they may show up on the landscape across the state. And that's done through habitat suitability modeling, in which we take known presence points, and these points actually come from Wifton members, just like yourselves. They come through the EdMaps national database, and all of these records have actually been amalgamated by Jason Granberg, who I believe talked a couple weeks ago on who's from the Wisconsin DNR. So these occurrence records are really coming from a variety of sources, and it's really only because of data sharing that we have this database available to us to do some of this modeling. And so what Alicia maybe didn't say was how this process works. So we take those occurrence records and we combine them with geospatial layers such as precipitation, temperature, soil attributes, distance to roads and waterways, among other variables. And we get that pixelated map that she showed to you earlier, which is really just depicting level of suitability across the state. Now, the reason I wanted to develop the resource that I'll talk about in just a little bit is because it gets kind of complicated. The story gets a little complicated. So we actually run 5 different modeling approaches, and we get these outputs that are binary. Either a given location is suitable for a species, or it's not suitable for a species. We add those together to get an index, and while this might be easily interpretable by myself or some others, it may not be easy to just send out to the average user across the state. So this process was actually done last year, and we developed these models, and we asked people around the state to go and find new occurrence records for many different species, and we reiterated this entire process. So now we're at the point where we have these updated models that we feel much more confident about. And we've done this for over 20 species across the state. But how do you use these models? For me, I can use these models and understand exactly what they're saying, but perhaps maybe not for the average user. You can zoom in and out and see what's going on at a statewide scale, what's the distribution of suitable habitat, or you can zoom in and look at some of the nuances. But maybe this isn't that helpful for the average user. So what we've done is we've actually developed priority species lists based on the species that we're able to model. And to do so, we split up the state into the 72 counties, and we looked at, well, what is the percent of the county that's actually deemed suitable habitat by our models? How many presence points do we have in that vast database that I talked about just a second ago? And perhaps what's going on around the region, and these are the 5 DNR regions across the state. And then we put them into 3 different categories. So we wanted to narrow down our list of a priority species from that 22 to around 15 or 10 to 15 per county. And we put them into three categories. Either they were omitted from the list or they were put into a high priority category, in which we found that there was a lot of suitable habitat across the county, but not many presence points. And again, we're calling it a high priority species because we want to catch some of these species early on in that invasion curve because we have a much better chance at controlling or eradicating them. Or they were put into a lesser priority category. Maybe we found that there's a lot of suitable habitat in the county, but it's been better surveyed than the high priority category. And then what we did is, instead of just sending these lists out to individuals who might reside in this county or that, we put them into an Esri story map. And this might be somewhat familiar for some of you who have been following along with WIFDM for the last couple of years. So I'll show you how you get to this in just a second, but this is the landing page for our Esri story map. On the side here, I'm showing a description of our project, what some of our goals are, and then and a reminder on how you can actually upload some of those new species locations using the GLED app or the EdMaps website. So along the top are various tabs. So we're on the landing page tab called County Specific Priority Lists. And as you move across the top, you'll find that there are about 22 tabs for each one of the species that we modeled that you'll end up finding in some of these priority species lists. So if I go ahead and click over, So if I live in, say, Door County, I can go and click on the Door County polygon here, and up will pop a priority species list. And those species that are highlighted in yellow are our high priority species, and those not highlighted are our priority species. And then we also have species that were omitted from those lists to narrow them down to that 10 to 15. So I can go ahead and click over to, say, one of the species, Canada thistle, and you'll find a short description of what the map is actually showing you to the right. And then some of the links to identification materials. We also link over to the Wisconsin DNR website so you can look at impacts, among others. And likely, when you go to this website on a computer, you're going to find that not all of these tabs are going to be visible. So I want to point you over to this drop-down menu that you'll find on the right-hand side. And if you hit that, you can continue to look at the various species that we're presenting. So let's say I wanted to click over to spotted knapweed. Again, like Canada thistle, I give a short description of what the map is showing. And I want to point you over to this feature. What we did is, if you click on any of the presence points, up will pop some reference photos. And I do discuss this in the description on the left. However, these are just reference photos. These are not photos of the actual species at that specific location. And these are taken from the Wisconsin DNR website. So how do you get there? You can type in this very complicated URL, or you can navigate over to the WIFDM website, click on the Learn tab, and then on the Invasive Species ID and Impacts page. So why did we do this again this year? I just wanted to throw some numbers at you. Because of data sharing and because I think our ability to reach across the aisle has gotten better over time, we've actually been able to add 19,000 new points to this occurrence database, which was an increase of about 33%. So that's a lot of new data that's coming in from a variety of sources. Based on the modeled species from last year, we added 14,000 plus new occurrence records, and actually 28% of those new points came from priority lists per county, and an additional 39% of those points came from the high priority lists. Now, those were mainly large data dumps that came in from resources like the Midwest Invasive Species Network, from the Kickapoo Valley Reserve, Iowa County Highway Commissioner, among many others. But when you look at just the reports that came in last year from WIFDM users and others just like yourselves, we got almost 2,000 new records, and almost 900 of those were of the modeled species. 65% of those were from priority species lists. So we felt that this resource perhaps was working well and decided to update it for this year. I just wanted to show you a couple maps. Alicia showed a couple from data sharing back when she was here at UW-Madison. So in 2015, this is a map of the known presence points of crown vetch across the state in our database. In 2016, because of large data dumps or new reports by Wifton users and others, we were able to add 260 new points to bring our total up to nearly 1,000 known occurrence records. And for leafy spurge, it's a similar but maybe even more impressive story. So in 2015, this is the distribution of points, and we added nearly 50% more to our database.